Good afternoon. This is All India Radio. I am Valsa Williams and with me is Abhishek Mukhopadhyay with the Midday News. The headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Washington, D.C. on a 4-day visit to the United States. Prime Minister to meet U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and top CEOs of American companies today to also hold bilateral meetings with his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison and Japanese Premier Yoshihide Suga. G4 countries comprising India, Brazil, Germany and Japan emphasized needs to reform UNSC to make it more legitimate, effective and representative. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia releases National Comprehensive Guidelines on Post-COVID Management. Over 83 crore 39 lakh doses of COVID-19 vaccine administered under the nationwide vaccination drive so far. Recovery rate reaches 97.77%. Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana completes 3 years today. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu urges industrial sector to implement various reforms with greater vigor for sustained economic growth. World Health Organization revises air quality guidelines for the first time since 2005. And in IPL cricket, Delhi Capitals beat Sunrisers Hyderabad by 8 wickets in Dubai. As the nationwide free COVID-19 vaccination campaign at government facilities for those above 18 years is underway, we advise our young listeners to get vaccinated and also help others get vaccinated. We also advise our listeners not to lower their guard as COVID-19 remains a threat to our health. Please stay at home unless it is essential to go out and continue to follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask. Maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing. Focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011 2397 8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Washington, D.C. this morning on a 4-day visit to the U.S. Braving rain, hundreds of Indian community members gathered at the airport to welcome Mr. Modi. As the Prime Minister's plane landed in Washington, exuberant members of the Indian diaspora started cheering. Mr. Modi has thanked the Indian community in Washington, D.C. for the warm welcome. In a tweet, he said, "Our diaspora is our strength." Mr. Modi said it is commendable how the Indian diaspora has distinguished itself across the world. Prime Minister Modi, on the first day of his visit to Washington, has a packed schedule. Today, he will interact with U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and global CEOs. Mr. Modi will also separately meet his Australian and Japanese counterparts. For more on the Prime Minister's visit, let's go live to our correspondent Saubhagya Kar in Washington. Saubhagya, give us more updates about the PM's engagements today.
Yes, Valsa, Prime Minister will today meet Vice President Kamala Harris. This will be the first meeting between the 2 leaders. Both the leaders spoke over phone in June during the COVID-19 crisis. Harris is the first Romanian, the first Black American, and the first South Asian American to be elected as Vice President. Prime Minister Modi is visiting the U.S. now for the 7th time after assuming office in 2014. Prior to his departure, he said the visit would be an occasion to strengthen the Indo-U.S. comprehensive global strategic partnership and consolidate ties with Japan and Australia. As well, sir?
Right, as you pointed out, the Prime Minister will have his first interaction today with top industry leaders. Could you give us a sense of that?
The Prime Minister will start his meetings with Qualcomm President and CEO Cristiano Amon, then with Santanu Narayan Chairman Adobe. Mr. Modi will interact 15 minutes with all captains of industry. Mark Winmar, CEO Farsola, Vivek Lal, Chairman and CEO General Atomics, and Stephen A. Squadman, Chairman, Founder Blackstone, will also meet with the Prime Minister. India is looking to boost exports through trade relationships and the overall India-US trade, bilateral trade in goods and services in 2019, it reached to $149 billion. U.S. energy exports are an also important area of growth in the trade relationship.
Thank you, Saubhagya, for those details. Prime Minister Mr. Modi is in the U.S. at President Biden's invitation to participate in the first in-person summit of Quad leaders. He will also address the 76th session of the UN General Assembly in New York. During his visit, the Prime Minister will hold a bilateral meet with U.S. President Joe Biden at the White House. The scientific community and entrepreneurs in the United States have welcomed the visit of Prime Minister Narendra Modi to the U.S. They expressed hope that it will enhance collaboration and exchange of ideas between the two countries. Talking to All India Radio from San Diego, the Chief Scientific Officer and founder of Triangulum Biopharma, Dr. Sanjay Pandey, said it will give a fillip to the spirit of innovation.
It gives me great honor to welcome Prime Minister Modi ji to the United States. From a scientific point of view, an Indo-US collaboration on an ongoing basis would foster mutual benefits in research and development. This can be accomplished by holding regular in-person workshops, engaging US-trained Indian scientists and professionals with Indian students across Indian academic institutions. In addition, creating an entrepreneurship ecosystem across India, especially northern India, by engaging US-trained entrepreneurs would foster scientific growth. I want to applaud Modi ji's government on the improvement and efficiency of obtaining an e-visa for US citizens.
Indian ambassador to the U.S., Taranjeet Singh Sandhu, has said that Prime Minister Modi's visit to the U.S. has 6 broad elements.
Prime Minister's visit to United States has 6 broad elements. So first is, of course, bilateral meeting with President Biden. Second is the meeting with the Vice President Kamala Harris. Third is the Quad Summit. Fourth is the interactions with Prime Ministers of Australia and Prime Minister of Japan separately. Then there is an interaction with select industry leaders. And finally, there is the UN section.
Mr. Sandhu said the Quad is a grouping of like-minded countries that have come together to focus on international issues and problems.
3-4 मुद्दे हैं जिसपे काफी स्ट्रॉन्ग कोऑपरेशन और पार्टनरशिप होगी। पहला वैक्सीन्स का है। चारों कंट्रीज अपनी स्ट्रेंथ है उसको पूल टुगेदर कर रही हैं। यूनाइटेड स्टेट्स टेक्नोलॉजी दे रहा है, जापान फाइनेंस कर रहा है और ऑस्ट्रेलिया अपनी लिफ्ट पावर दे रहा है और इंडिया प्रोडक्शन कैपेबिलिटी में और कैपेसिटी में बहुत स्ट्रांग है, वो मैन्युफैक्चर करेगा। तो उसी तरह से डिजिटल और फ्यूचर टेक्नोलॉजीज में वो सेकंड पहलू और थर्ड इज क्लाइमेट चेंज। चारों लीडर्स कमिटेड हैं एंड इसमें भी बहुत पोटेंशियल है इन्वेस्टमेंट्स का। चारों इकट्ठे होके एक दूसरे की इसमें मदद करेंगे।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has said that India has always seen humanity as one family. He said India's pharmaceutical industry has produced cost-effective diagnostic kits, drugs, medical devices, and PPE kits, and these are providing affordable options to many developing countries. In his remarks at the Global COVID-19 Summit via video conferencing yesterday, Mr. Modi said earlier this year, India shared the vaccine production with 95 other countries and with UN peacekeepers, and like a family, the world also stood with India when it was going through a second wave. He said recently 25 million people were vaccinated on a single day. Mr. Modi said over 200 million Indians are now fully vaccinated. He said as newer Indian vaccines get developed, Government of India is also ramping up production capacity of existing vaccines.
As our production increases, we will be able to resume vaccine supply to others too. For this, the supply chains of raw materials must be kept open. Our grassroots level healthcare system had delivered over 800 million vaccine doses so far. Over 200 million Indians are now fully vaccinated. This has been enabled through the use of our innovative digital platform called CoWIN.
The PM said the supply chain of raw materials must be kept open in order to resume vaccine supplies to others. He said there is also a need to focus on addressing the pandemic's economic effects. He said to that end, international travel should be made easier through mutual recognition of vaccine certificates.
India and the South Africa have proposed a TRIPS waiver at the WTO for COVID vaccines, diagnostic and medicines. This will enable rapid scaling of the fight against the pandemic. We also need to focus on addressing the pandemic economic effect. To that end, international travel should be made easier through mutual recognition of vaccine certificates.
The foreign ministers of G4 countries comprising India, Brazil, Germany and Japan have stressed on the urgency of reforming the United Nations Security Council in order to make it more legitimate, effective and representative. The foreign ministers of the G4 countries, India's S. Jaishankar, Brazil's Carlos Alberto Franco Ranca, Germany's Heiko Maas, and Japan's Toshimitsu Motegi met on the sidelines of the United Nations General Assembly in New York last night. The ministers issued a joint statement following the meeting in which they reaffirmed that it is indispensable to reform the Security Council through an expansion of both categories, permanent and non-permanent seats, to enable the Security Council to better deal with the ever-complex and evolving challenges to the maintenance of international peace and security, and thereby to carry out its duties more effectively.
India's flagship health program Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana has completed 3 years today. Around 2 crore 20 lakh people have been benefited under the scheme launched on this day in 2018 by Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It is the world's largest healthcare program and provides a health cover of 5 lakh rupees annually to vulnerable families and aims at benefiting more than 10 crore poor families across the country. Talking exclusively to All India Radio, National Health Authority Chief Executive Officer Dr. R.S. Sharma said in the 3 years of its launch, the scheme has contributed significantly to address the challenge of equitable access to inpatient health care for the poor. He said barring West Bengal, Odisha and Delhi, 33 states and union territories are implementing the scheme.
We are covering 10.74 crore families in this program, which actually translates to about 54 crore people, and we provide cashless treatment and also paperless process of reimbursements to the hospitals. We are ensuring quality, affordability and access to the healthcare system in the country. We recently celebrated 2nd crore beneficiary, and till now the hospitalization has been to the tune of 2.12 crore people, and we are taking care of all kinds of diseases, problems, so that poor people do not have to spend any money out of their pocket. We continue to improve the quality of the healthcare by ensuring more and more hospitals which come into our fold. Essentially, the whole process is patient-centric and ensures that patient gets the best treatment whichever is available in the country.
Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu today called upon industry to work with the government on implementing various reforms with greater vigour and pave the way for sustained economic growth in the coming decade. Speaking virtually at Mystic South Global Linkages Summit towards a $1.5 trillion economy by 2025, organized by the Confederation of Indian Industry, he said India is now at a decisive point in regaining its growth. He added that now is the time for all the stakeholders to join hands and ensure sustained economic momentum. The BJP today said the Indian economy is on a recovery path and the government has taken several new initiatives which will further boost the economy. Briefing media in New Delhi, party spokesperson Gopal Krishna Agarwal said the labour force participation has increased to 40.1% in 2019-20. He said direct tax collection has also increased by 28% as compared to pre-COVID period. He added that indirect tax collection has also increased along with export. He added that India's ranking in the Global Innovation Index has improved to 46 as compared to 81 in 2015. Mr. Agarwal said the government has removed the retrospective tax.
The Supreme Court today orally observed that it would be setting up a technical expert committee to inquire into the Pegasus snooping matter. The apex court also said that an order will be passed next week on a batch of pleas seeking an independent probe into the issue. A bench headed by Chief Justice N.V. Ramanna said the order, which was to be pronounced earlier, will now be delivered next week. The bench said that they will be able to finalize the members of the technical expert team by next week and then pronounce the orders. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia today released National Comprehensive Guidelines on Post-COVID Management to give guidance on long-term health issues. In a series of tweets, this will help health workers prepare for post-COVID health complications in advance and give suitable treatment to patients. He said this is the first such series of 7 modules released in India providing extensive guidelines for medical fraternity. This includes a module for healthcare providers to deal with mental health, which is of utmost importance. Expressing his happiness on the release of guidelines, the Health Minister said that these have been prepared to provide guidance to doctors and healthcare workers to deal with the issue of long-term effects of COVID. He said that proactive and comprehensive treatment of COVID is required to ensure minimum side effects and no negative effect of the treatment. He further added that the consequences of post-COVID effect in patients have been witnessed due to taking higher doses of steroids like cases of mucormycosis. He stressed that it is important to take medicines with less or negligible side effects.
India has administered over 83 crore 39 lakh doses of COVID vaccine so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. The Union Health Ministry said more than 71 lakh 38,000 vaccine doses were administered in the last 24 hours. The ministry said 31,990 COVID patients recovered during the last 24 hours, and the national recovery rate has reached 97.77%. The country reported 31,923 new cases in the last 24 hours. Currently, India's active caseload is at around 3,01,000. In the program Spotlight, the News Services Division of All India Radio is broadcasting a special series, Seva aur Samarpan 20 Saal Sushaasan Ke. Today's theme is Digital India Financial Inclusion. It showcases Prime Minister Narendra Modi's vision on digital financial inclusion and inclusive development of India. The special program can be heard tonight on FM Gold channel and additional frequencies from 9:15 p.m. onwards. Also, raising awareness about coronavirus tonight, we have Dr. Mona Desai from Ahmedabad, who will participate in Corona Jagrukta series and answer queries of listeners from 9:30 to 10 p.m. So keep listening to All India Radio News for the latest developments.
You are listening to the Midday News on All India Radio. A reminder of the headlines before we move on. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Washington, D.C. on a 4-day visit to the United States. Prime Minister to meet U.S. President Kamala Harris and top CEOs of American companies today, to also hold bilateral meetings with his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison and Japanese Premier Yoshihide Suga. G4 countries comprising India, Brazil, Germany and Japan emphasize need to reform UNSC to make it more legitimate, effective and representative. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia releases National Comprehensive Guidelines on Post-COVID Management. Over 83 crore 39 lakh doses of COVID-19 vaccine administered under the nationwide vaccination drive so far. Recovery rate reaches 97.77%. Ayushman Bharat, the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, completes 3 years today. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu urges industrial sector to implement various reforms with greater vigor for sustained economic growth. World Health Organization revises air quality guidelines for the first time since 2005. And in IPL cricket, Delhi Capitals beat Sunrisers Hyderabad by 8 wickets in Dubai. For quick news updates round the clock, follow us on our Twitter handle at AIR News Alerts.
Welcome back to the Midday News. The World Health Organization today revised its air quality guidelines for the first time since 2005. According to the WHO, through tightened guidelines, it hopes to spur countries toward clean energy and prevent deaths and illness caused by air pollution. The new recommendations particularly target pollutants, including particulate matter and nitrogen dioxide, both of which are found in fossil fuel emissions. WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said air pollution kills at least 7 million people prematurely each year. Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting and Youth Affairs and Sports, Anurag Thakur, is having a discussion with BJP functionaries in Lucknow today to decide the strategy for the upcoming polls in Uttar Pradesh. Prior to the meeting, he met with Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath at his residence and also participated in the function at State BJP headquarters, where an exhibition on the life of Prime Minister Narendra Modi was inaugurated by UP CM Yogi Adityanath this morning. More from our correspondent.
Union Minister for Information and Broadcasting and Youth Affairs and Sports, Anurag Thakur, reached Lucknow yesterday as part of the BJP's Central Poll team. He has been appointed as co-in-charge by BJP for elections in Uttar Pradesh. The Central team, under the leadership of Union Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan, is discussing poll strategy with the state BJP functionaries in Lucknow and Gorakhpur during its visit. Yesterday also, the Central team had a discussion with Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath, BJP State Chief Swatantra Dev Singh and other ministers in Lucknow. Sushil Chandra Tiwari, AIR News, Lucknow.
As the nation celebrates the 75th year of independence, a series of events has been organized by the government as a part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. Let's listen now to a special program, Azadi Ka Safar.
Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav.
Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. India's glorious fight for freedom is one of the greatest struggles the modern world has ever witnessed. AIR News brings you a glimpse of the valiant struggle every day.
In today's episode, we bring you the story of the great revolutionary freedom fighter, Rao Tularam. The day marks the death anniversary of this great leader of the First War of Indian Independence of 1857, who fought against the colonial British forces in Haryana, where he is considered a state hero.
Rao Tularam was born on 9th December 1825 in Rampura suburb of Rewari to Puran Singh and Gyan Kaur, and ruled Rewari for 18 years from 1839 to 1857. In 1857, after the rebellion in Meerut and other places, he rose up to support the uprising.
He also helped rebel forces fighting in Delhi with soldiers and resources. He also temporarily succeeded in driving out the British from the southwest Haryana during the rebellion.
On 17th May 1857, Rao Tularam, along with his cousin Rao Gopal Dev and a group of his followers, deposed the local Tehsildar. He raised a force of about 5,000 soldiers and set up a workshop in the fort of Rampura for manufacturing the guns and other ammunition.
Rao helped Emperor Bahadur Shah and other rebel forces who were waging war against the British in Delhi and sent 45,000 rupees along with large quantities of necessary commodities to him. But this help could not protect Delhi, which fell to the British on 20th September 1857.
Soon after, Brigadier General Showers led a column from Delhi to attack and destroy Rao and his followers in Rewari. Showers sent a messenger to Tularam telling him that if he surrenders along with his guns and arms, he would be treated on merits. But Tularam turned down the proposal.
British officer then sent a strong column under Colonel Gerard on November 10, 1857, which occupied the abandoned fort of Rampura. On November 16, Colonel Gerard marched to Narnaul, where the rebel forces led by Rao Tularam's cousin, Rao Krishan Singh, fought against them.
Tularam's forces fought bravely against the British. As the first charge of rebel forces scattered the British, Colonel Gerard was mortally wounded in the attack. Several other British officers were also killed or injured.
But the British forces successfully retaliated with full force and heavy bombardment. The Battle of Narnaul was one of the most decisive battles of 1857.
After suffering loss and destruction in the Battle of Narnaul, Rao Tularam moved into Rajasthan and joined the forces of Tantia Tope. But the forces of Tantia Tope were also defeated by British in the Battle of Sikar in Rajasthan. Thereafter, Rao left India to seek help from the Shah of Iran, Dost Muhammad Khan, the ruler of Emirate of Afghanistan, and Alexander II, the Emperor of Russia, against the British colonial empire.
For his defiance, Rao Tularam's estates were confiscated by the British. On 23rd September 1863, he died in Kabul in Afghanistan at the age of 38 due to an infection that spread throughout his body. Till his last breath, Rao attempted to forge alliances to fight against British imperialism.
A two-day Shahidi Mela is held annually in September at Rampura suburb of Rewari city to commemorate the death anniversary of Tularam. The Government of India issued a postage stamp on 23rd September 2001 featuring Rao Tularam. India is forever indebted to the selfless service and sacrifice of martyrs like Rao Tularam.
That brings us to the end of this episode of Azadi Ka Safar with AIR News. See you in the next episode tomorrow.
आजादी के अमृत महोत्सव के पावन अवसर पर आकाशवाणी समाचार के कार्यक्रम परिक्रमा में गुरुवार को शाम 4:45 पर सुनिए देश की आजादी की लड़ाई में अपना अमूल्य योगदान देने वाले भारतीय स्वतंत्रता संग्राम के सिपाही की वीर गाथा।
In today's episode of Veer Gatha, we will bring you the saga of Ramchandra Vidyarthi. In IPL cricket, Mumbai Indians will take on Kolkata Knight Riders at the Sheikh Zayed Stadium in Abu Dhabi at 7:30 p.m. today. Delhi Capitals defeated Sunrisers Hyderabad by 8 wickets at the Dubai International Stadium last night. Chasing a target of 135 runs, Delhi overhauled the score in 17.5 overs.
Now let us take a look at the weather update for today. National capital Delhi is likely to have generally cloudy sky with light rain. The city recorded 25 degrees Celsius as minimum temperature, while the maximum will be around 32 degrees. Mumbai will have a generally cloudy sky with heavy rain. Temperature will hover between 25 and 31 degrees. Kolkata will have a generally cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain. The minimum temperature in the city was 26 degrees, while the maximum will be around 32. Chennai is likely to witness thunderstorm with rain. Temperature will vary between 26 and 34 degrees Celsius. Jammu is expected to have a partly cloudy sky with possibility of rain. Minimum temperature was 23 degrees. Maximum may go up to 30. Srinagar is expected to have a partly cloudy sky with 1 or 2 spells of rain. The minimum temperature was 16 degrees. Maximum will be nearly 28. Leh will have generally cloudy sky. Minimum temperature was 8 degrees. Maximum will be around 24. Gilgit will have generally cloudy sky with possibility of rain or dust storm. It noted a lower limit of 12 degrees, while maximum temperature may rise up to 30 degrees. Muzaffarabad is likely to have partly cloudy sky with possibility of rain or thunderstorm. And now, before we end the bulletin, the headlines once again. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Washington, D.C. on a 4-day visit to the United States. Prime Minister to meet U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris and top CEOs of American companies today, to also hold bilateral meetings with his Australian counterpart Scott Morrison and Japanese Premier Yoshihide Suga. G4 countries comprising India, Brazil, Germany, Japan emphasize need to reform UNSC to make it more legitimate, effective and representative. Health Minister Mansukh Mandavia releases National Comprehensive Guidelines on Post-COVID Management. Over 83 crore 39 lakh doses of COVID-19 vaccine administered under the nationwide vaccination drive so far. Recovery rate reaches 97.77%. Ayushman Bharat Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana completes 3 years today. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu urges industrial sector to implement various reforms with greater vigor for sustained economic growth. World Health Organization revises air quality guidelines for first time since 2005. And in IPL cricket, Delhi Capitals beat Sunrisers Hyderabad by 8 wickets in Dubai. And with that, we end the midday news.